Hey everyone, welcome back to Data and Donuts. My name's Aaron. I'm here with my friend and colleague Alex. Today we're going to talk about how to utilize curriculum data and course information in your planning. But before we get into that, I would like Alex to introduce himself and tell us a little bit about his background.
Hi, my name's Alex Claxton. I'm a planning and research analyst up at Kenyatta College in the San Mateo Community College District. Before that, I spent a little bit of time at Cerritos College, and before that, Santa Ana College. So I've had a nice little mix of LA and, well, Orange County and the Bay Area in my background.
E- Excellent, excellent. So I wanted to get into a conversation we started having the other day. The conversation was first about, we have student data over here, we have external data over here, we have data coming in from a variety of places. And how we talk about how we utilize that data with some of the projects that Alex, myself, and others have worked on has really been important to our work. But one of the pieces of the conversations outside of that is curriculum data and how that data can actually be leveraged in the work that we do. So go ahead, Alex, if you could share a little bit about your experience utilizing curriculum data.
Yeah, so the first thing is that curriculum data is integral to the student experience. This may not be as obvious as like the course success rates and all that other typical data, but the way that we design our course outlines of record, to get to the jargon of it, really determines how students move through our institution to get to their awards. And so one of the elements that I've been using over the last few years is this sort of requirement-based data to look at how our students are completing, how our majors are related, specifically with guided pathways. That was an integral feature to a couple projects I worked on. And so to get more into that, I'll say that was my first toe dip into the pond, as it were. We had to transcribe our curriculum data for all of our programs, and that is the headache part. But once you have that, you have this really rich data set, and you can sort of look at across majors, what is the most common core requirement? Core in this case, meaning you have to take this course, specifically, say, Accounting 100 or Psych 100, are a required core course for accounting and psychology, respectively. And then you can also see, like, what are these sort of cross-department courses that we're seeing in our selective lists, or select from this list of electives. I realize there's a lot of jargon, so I try to, when I realize I'm using jargon, to sort of explain it as I go. But you get a sense of where are we seeing this shared course taking across these different programs and majors, where is there sort of niche courses. And so when it came to looking at guided pathways and forming these interest areas, meta majors, program groups, whatever you want to call them, one method that I employed, that I was featured at the RP group conference, plug, was to basically take all of the curriculum information and join it together and sort of form association connections between your majors. You can see how much overlap is there in the curriculum of, say, accounting AA and your psych AA. And for those, relatively little. But now when you talk about your accounting AA and your business administration, you start to see a lot more overlap. And so from that, you can start to form sort of a web of relationships between your different programs. And, a lot of it's pretty similar, or you wouldn't be too surprised by the outcome. So again, like business administration and accounting being grouped together, or sociology and psychology, right? Those are very near programs in terms of how we conceptualize them. But you can get some interesting things being pulled in, like a separation between, say, studio art and art history, where, typically those are very often grouped together, but in terms of the curriculum, they're actually more disparate than art history and sociology, for example. That was one that I think was surprising. And so beyond that, this also has implications for the way in which we schedule courses. Because if you have a number of programs that are requiring Business 100, that gives you a bigger student demand pool for that course, and you may need more courses than you would for a more niche course, a high level anthropology, which is probably only going to be required for anthropology awards and certificates. And so from that perspective, you can sort of get a little bit of an idea of where you have these shared requirements, maybe courses that shouldn't be time conflicted with each other in terms of the schedule, looking at student demand and all of those things. So that was a very long and sort of winding explanation of how we've used this, but I think it allows you to investigate these overlaps that are not immediately obvious. And especially because I don't know about anyone else's colleges, but at the colleges I've worked at, a lot of departments and their corresponding programs are sort of conceptualized in a silo, so we don't necessarily have the psychology faculty talking to the business faculty about the shared courses that they need to offer to each other. Maybe there's only one or two, but it does come into play. And so in that way, we've used them to get an idea of, again, this demand by students. And so assuming you know how many psych majors you have, you can say, okay, we have this many psych majors. They need these 4 courses as core courses, compared to these 8 courses where they need to pick one from this selective list. And that sort of allows you to be strategic about when you offer courses, how often, and how many sections.
Excellent, excellent. I've seen this happen. It sounds like a great process at your college, and I've seen this happen firsthand at mine as well, where you have the key courses, but then you look at that overlap and almost build like a Kumu map or a connection point. They almost look like a
Mm-hmm.
giant neural network where
Yeah.
everything's connected, and you're looking at the frequency of what needs what things. And as we do more curriculum refinement, we can help guide students. And I think that's been some of the key aspects at some institutions, at least what I've seen in a few programs that I've worked with, is they have the
Mm-hmm.
4 courses like you have, but then they have strands where they can go off to the separate degrees and certificates. But it
Right.
really helps with that onboarding of students as they're exploring, and then they're moving through their program to say, wow, I'm interested in program A, B, or C, but I already have my foundation put together. So I think that's a really good approach. Now, when you ran this data, how did you share it with faculty?
Yeah, so that was a challenge in a way, mainly because it's not, like I was saying before, it's not something that is commonly thought of. It does sort of break the mold on how we share it. But one of the ways I found was that similar, the network approach for specifically that guided pathways forming meta majors. The faculty really responded well to that, so it made it very obvious why we grouped art history and psychology. Oh, hello. uh, Guest star. But the ability to do that was very helpful because again, if without that, you're sort of left to reinvent the same structures that you have in place for like again converting a division into an interest area meta major, what have you. Sorry, interest areas are parlance for it, and so that's my default. But yeah, so without those external inputs on, hey, there's actually this overlap here. We wouldn't necessarily bring in these disparate departments because our current structure was separate from that. It was, oh, well, this group is with this division, and so we'll just have it basically guided pathways. We'll just recreate divisions with a new name. And that was not ever the goal. Other ways it's been helpful is saying, hey, this course that you're offering in your department has widespread benefits across the campus. Like, I mean, English and math are obvious ones where, you get mass appeal across the campus, but you get to things like Business 100 shows up in a lot of interesting places. And so you see that people outside of that specific domain are in there, and you're able to sort of, I don't know, show praise for these programs and say, like, you have a massive impact on campus and you may not even realize it. So I think those have been the primary ways. We're dipping our toe into the pond of looking at like course requirement needs. So how close are students to completing all of their requirements for their award? And that will also sort of inform a lot of the discussions around that. Like, hey, we noticed that a lot of students are like two classes away from getting this award that you offer, and we need to make sure we offer these two courses to students. And so I guess that is less to faculty, more to deans, all the whole right of assignment and all that. But it's the ability to share the impact, the broader impact outside of the classroom. Because
I,
when, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, sorry to cut you off, but I think what you just said was really impactful is how do we share that broader impact? And I think to me, it's very insightful, not just for the students, but then also for the faculty to be like, hey, you have like 80 students that are just like one class away. Can you teach this term? And what does that look like going forward, like you're saying? And how do we reverse engineer all the data that we have to say, like, based on proportionalities, when are we completing? And then that nudge to the faculty, the nudge to the students, and then to our students and instructional support teams to engage. But go ahead, continue. Sorry, it was just really inspiring.
No, it's I did forget where I was going with that because I think that it's oh, that's what it is. It's easy for faculty to see their role as I teach this class, and that's what I do. But that class is a part of a bigger dynamic at the college. You have these awards that students are pursuing, and each individual class is like one building block, and they, over the course of years, sometimes many years, students assemble all these pieces together to fill out their award. And each individual faculty has a component element in that, but it's hard sometimes to see the broader picture, right? That's been my experience, is that once you sort of reframe it like that, faculty have responded well to that. But their main interaction with students is they're in my classroom, I'm teaching this class. But when we can sort of zoom out just like one level of abstraction above the class level, you get to the program level, and you can see how these dynamics play out and how, again, like I was saying, the shared overlap, shared impact of that individual course on the broader student base.
Most definitely. And I think, you touched on so many things when we talked about, just the impact of courses. And you mentioned scheduling. A common practice I've seen with enrollment management, at least in more recent times, and like I said, firsthand, and then with some other colleagues, is that developing multi-year schedules. Not having it where they can access and then add the class, but developing multi-year schedules. And it's kind of like when you go to the movies. I don't know if you still go to the movies. I do all the time. But it's one of those things like, you check the schedule on certain days because you want to see that movie, like the new Spider-Man movie. If you haven't seen that, it's pretty cool. And but with that, I think letting students know what's coming and what's ahead, not waiting till like, oh, wait till the end of the semester and roll out a new schedule that's the same rolled over schedule as last time. And if we put it together, and at least what I've seen from some of my colleagues, is they've put together like 1 and 2 year schedules of when they're offering these courses. So when you have those magical niche courses, they know when those are offered, and so then we can prepare and market and tell our counselors, our student services, our students, our community when these are happening. And making it publicly available is one of those key aspects of taking that information you have and really putting it together in a way that's actionable. Because I think, like I said, it's kind of like knowing what you like. Imagine going to Cheesecake Factory and you get that like menu that's like, I don't know, a phone book, and you're just like, what am I going to order? If some people, I guess maybe I'm the only person that goes in advance and reads the menu to know, okay, what do I want, or what can I look forward to, or if I'm going to go to a new restaurant I've never been, I kind of want to see what's on the menu, so I'm not there just like, I don't know what I want, and everyone's like starving so to eat.
Yeah, no, that's a great segue to another thing that I had on my notes that I had slipped my mind. But once
ahead.
you have the curriculum data broken out by the requirement block, like core courses are each their own row, and then you have your selective blocks. So if they need 3 units or 6 units from a selective block, you can go through and identify the minimum viable product of your schedule to complete the requirements for every single program of study that you have. And so that was something that we undertook recently at Kenyatta, to sort of build out this course availability pattern. So it's, in a 2-year cycle, when is this required course going to slot in there? And from that, you sort of simplify the equation of scheduling because it is an incredibly complex problem. Like the dynamics of scheduling college courses is amazing, right? You have people resources that you need to schedule. You have space resources you need to schedule. You have requirements that you need to meet. And so when you can sort of distill down that into be like, this selective is a core course for another program, then you can start making these connections and be like, okay, well, then we're definitely going to make sure that's in rotation more often. And you end up with this sort of slightly reduced course list that is your essential courses. Like if you just offered those courses over the course of 2 years, every student who is taking 15 units would be able to complete their award, assuming there's no conflicts. But I mean, again, the dynamics get pretty big. There's a lot of caveats there, but once you have the curriculum information in a way that you can interact with it, you're able to find these overlaps and say, okay, if we offer these 250 courses, we can complete all 123 of our awards. And then it just comes down to where does it slot in that 2 year cycle? Is this a every fall and spring course? Is this a odd fall or even fall course? And it allows you to ensure that you are meeting every student's needs as they come through.
That's awesome. I think just putting that together, I would like to know what advice would you give to your colleagues trying to go through this?
Um, Work with whoever is managing your curricular information. Is it various brands that are out there? There's usually some way, if you are persistent enough, to get that information out in a clean way. Because when I've had to hand transcribe it, or had other colleagues hand transcribe it, it introduces human error in a way that is unavoidable. If working with the curricular management system is not a possibility, you can always transcribe it and then have someone check your work. And it's a lot of work up front if you're doing it that way. But it really unlocks a lot of things to do with it. And to be honest, course outlines of record don't change too often. We don't change our programs of study very frequently. Psychology probably looks about the same as it did, 5 years ago. So you're really only updating this periodically and infrequently.
See, and that's cool. And I think to me, some of those cyclical things, one of the things I've noticed is as we go through this process, I don't know, you can share a little bit about this, is where faculty refining their curriculum, what we noticed is people were like, oh my God, look at these 100 classes we've never offered. Let's purge. And so they made the decision to just retire these courses that haven't been offered in like a bazillion years. And I don't know if you saw the same thing happen.
Oh, yeah. We recently had an initiative go through our district academic senate to bank or retire these courses that hadn't been offered in 5 years, right? They've never been offered. You could go a little bit more extreme and go for the ones that haven't filled in 5 years, but I mean, then you have to start making more considerations for smaller programs. As the smallest college in the district, we are more limited in which courses we can offer in, for instance, multiple modalities in a given semester. And so there's different considerations there. But yeah, I think streamlining the courses that we offer, one, it makes the catalog a little bit shorter, which I don't think anyone would mind. And it also doesn't unintentionally mislead students. Because if it's in the catalog and they say, oh, wow, we have a video game design for Apple, I don't know, some very, maybe niche, but very interesting course, students aren't holding off on fulfilling that requirement for that course to come around. So that's also the advantage of compiling that course availability and having a known schedule for courses to be offered. Then students can, as you're saying, going back to the cheesecake analogy, they can review the menu before they get to the restaurant. So I guess they can find what courses are going to be available before the term comes about, and they can plan strategically because our students are very savvy, and they know how to work through the processes, or at least a subset do. And so giving the students the tools to use their savvy, I think, is sort of our obligation as higher ed institutions.
I agree. And I think not looking through the student perspective, like the more they're feeling prepared, the more they're feeling looking forward to something, I think it keeps them motivated to persist forward, to say like, wow, they're going to offer class ABC this term. Like, I want to take that class. I need that class. This is the elective I'm looking for. I'll wait till that term, or, oh, wow, I don't
Right.
see they're offering it until like a year and a half from now. What else can I take? Because with the current status of most institutions is they have to wait and then guess, is it going to get put on there, or
Yep.
not? And so that's let's take the guessing game out. So it sounds like you're headed in that direction as well. That's cool.
Mhm.
Awesome. So I'm going to jump to our final question, which is,
All
what
right.
is your favorite streaming show or show you've ever watched, or what are you currently watching?
All right. So, my favorite show that is moderately recent is Severance. It's on Apple TV. Not to plug the brand, but it is one of my favorite shows of all time, and I am very excited for season 2 to come out. The recent writer strike is sort of putting that into somewhat a limbo, but it's phenomenal. It has a great cast, so highly recommend that to anyone watching this.
Excellent. All right. I will check that out. Cool. Well, thank you so much, Alex. This has been fun. And like I said, I'd like to have you on here again to talk to me about a follow up in the future. So cool.
Love to be there.
Sounds good. Have a good one.